Hello guys, how you all doing? I'm just going to let the room fill up a little bit before we get started. There's a chat feature here so we can all start talking in the chat as well. So get used to, this is a new system that we haven't used before, so just get used to it for a few minutes while we wait for everybody to jump in. Cool. Everybody can hear and see okay? Hello, hello, hello. Good, the room's filling up. How is everybody? Hope you all had a good weekend. Someone's got a slight hangover. Who in the UK, who in London has been affected by the storm this weekend? Storm's been a little bit crazy in London. Someone said they don't have sound. Has everybody else got sound? Check your settings on your side that your computer is allowing sound. Someone's saying that the storm's bad in Devon, northern USA. Lots of snow. Hello, US, people from the United States. Cool, guys. It's good to see everybody. Good to see everybody coming in. Cool. Just see there's a few people. Norway, Spain, Canada, Holland. Everybody's in the house tonight. Slovenia, Barcelona, Morocco, Poland, Scousers, Liverpool. That's Gary. Miami, Florida. Nice. Lots and lots of people in. So guys, this is sort of a new look webinar feature that we have. You can see obviously that we're not using the same sort of platform that we used to use before. So this is a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier to use. So now that we're going to be using this, we're going to be using this quite regularly. So we're going to do the live Sniper Sundays tonight, and then we're going to be using this for regular webinars. And I'm also going to jump on here quite often as well. Once we get, when we're in trades or during the week, sometimes we can just jump on a quick live. Someone's liking the platform. It's good to hear. So you've all seen the chat. There's a Q&A section as well, which you don't really need because you can ask questions in the chat. But yeah, if you want to ask a few questions on the Q&A section, you can. Okay, someone else has said no sound, but again, check the sound on your side. Along the bottom, there should be an option just to make sure that your audio is on. Yeah, press sound on the bottom left. Okay, we've got lots and lots of people in the house. So what I'm going to do today is go through Sniper Sundays. And yeah, just do what we normally do. Go through what we normally do. Go through all of our pairs. Look for what we can look for our trades for this week, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, you can ask me at the end. So just in general, so let's get on to Sniper Sundays and let's get started. A few people having problems with the audio. As I said, bottom left, there's an audio. Make sure that it's not on mute. Make sure that you can hear. Make sure that your audio is on. Okay, everyone ready? Everyone good to get started? Okay, cool. So let's talk about last week a little bit first. Last week, Sniper Sundays, what we're looking for was some really, really big trades coming. I mentioned before that when we have swing trades, a lot of the time we have to wait a little bit before they're ready. So last week was a little bit too early. It was a little bit too early before these big swing trades happen. They're still developing, but I think that a lot of these pairs are coming to the end of their current trends, and we're going to be looking at taking these trades this week. So obviously Aussie dollar, we were looking at AUD USD, all the Aussie dollar pairs, and we're going to be looking at lots of pairs. I think this week is now the week we might see a little bit of a push further on the US dollar, which I'm going to run over. But yeah, I think it's time for these big swing trades. So they might take a little bit of time to develop this week, but I'm going to jump on the charts now and show you guys I'm going to show you guys everything as a normal Sniper Sundays. Again, for the audio, guys, please just check your settings on Zoom. On the bottom left, there should be an audio selection where you can make sure that you're not muted and make sure that you can hear. Everybody else can hear. Okay, guys, can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see my Euro USD chart? Okay, cool. I'm going to take this chat bit off for a minute, just so it's not in the way, but I'm glad that you can all see it. Make sure that it's set, that you enlarge the screen and make sure you make it full size so then you can see it properly. If you expand the video, then it'll be full screen. Okay, all good? All ready to start? Okay, cool. Let's get started. So guys, Euro USD here. We were looking at this last week. We've been looking at this for quite some time to look at taking a long trade on this. So I'm just going to go over sort of what happened last week first. So going back to the start of the year, we were expected Euro. I'm going to take these away just to make it a little bit clearer first. So Euro USD, what we were expecting since the start of the year was for this to push down from around these highs here where we took that initial short trade, and we're looking for it to come down. I'm going to get rid of a few things here. Go back. So yeah, we're looking for this to push down, and we're looking for it to come down to sort of these regions here, where we broke down. We're looking at this to come down towards this level, and then we're looking at it to come down to the weekly support. Now, it broke down a lot further than we expected last week. As you can see, we came down to that weekly support. We had a bit of a push up, but then last week the US dollar just had so much strength that it just kept pushing this all the way down. Now, what we were looking at last week, one second, guys. There we go. Right, so what we were looking at last week, guys, was taking a long trade on this. Now, it didn't quite work out because, as I said, we're looking for these big swing trades that are coming soon. And I still believe that we're going to see a big reversal on Euro USD soon as well. So we're looking for a long trade on this, but out of nowhere, we sort of had that really, really strong US dollar strength that we saw at the end of last week. Now, looking back on this, what we were looking at was price coming down towards this trend line, as I just explained. But then we're also looking at it to come down and tap this weekly support level 1.100. Now, as we came down to here, we had that nice bounce, and then when we came back down on the next push down the following week, which was last week, what was very, very interesting and a very, very important level was this level here. Now, as explained, this level was important because on this daily chart, on this daily trend, we had a higher high here, a higher low, and a higher high. And in order for this to not break through or to not turn bearish on the daily, we needed this to support. Now, we did lose a trade on this last week, but this is where in trading, you learn never to actually jump straight back into the market at times. If you're wrong, admit you're wrong, and then just take a step back and view the market. Now, on Thursday, we saw this close back above this level. You can see here how this level is very, very important and how the market closed back up above this on Thursday. So this would have brought in some more long traders to try and push this back up. However, the bears were just too strong and pushed this down. Now, I was watching this very, very closely on Friday. I was even looking at a possible intraday trade short down, because with this bearishness that we've seen over the last 1, 2, 3, we saw a little bit of consolidation around here where our long trade looked like it might possibly push up, but the bears just completely took over and broke this down. Now, at this level here, we have now broken through that, so we can expect possibly to push back up. But however, what I am still looking at is this pair to push down lower and sort of come down into these regions. We see this on the weekly chart now. We've got this big bearish candle. So I'm expecting this to push down into sort of these levels and test these levels of support on the weekly. If we just zoom out on the weekly chart here, this is the weekly chart. You can see this strong level of support. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And a very, very strong level of support. Now we're about to come into that again. We're about to retest this as support. So what we may be seeing, if we are going to see this reversal, is that perhaps when now this daily uptrend is no longer valid. So that's why I've removed that support level. But we could come into this level here and we may find support and create a weekly double bottom. Now a weekly double bottom would be very, very strong. And we could see a very, very sharp reversal and a push to the upside. That trend line you saw on my chart a minute ago is coming from here. We're also coming into now this level, first touch of the trend line here, 0.1, 0.2, and we're coming into 0.3. Just going to quickly check the chat, make sure everybody can hear. Everybody following okay so far? Okay, cool. So yeah, we're coming into this very, very strong weekly support level. And we can see that we're coming into this weekly trend line, this trend line here. Now remember, the higher the time frame, the stronger that the support level is and the stronger the trend line. So here we've got a weekly trend line, 0.1, 0.2. We're coming to retest that again. Remember, this is the weekly chart. So that means that this is going to be a very, very strong trend line. It's going to take a lot to break this. If this was to break and we could clear this, then yes, there should be a lot more downside. But I don't think it's time for that just yet. We've seen a big bullish push on the US dollar last week, but that can easily be reversed. So here we're looking at confluences and trying to understand what the market's going to do next. So we have seen a nice push up. We pulled back down. We could come in to make a double bottom. You can see we've got this really strong, this area of support is very, very strong on the weekly. This whole area of support. And we've also confluenced now that we've got 0.1, 0.2, and the all important third touch on the trend line. So now we'll drop down to the daily chart and start to have a closer look at this once again. So now you can see we're coming into here. We just started to break the trend line on Friday. Now I'm expecting to come down into these levels and possibly consolidate a little bit like I explained before. Let me just get rid of this for a minute. Expect to consolidate a little bit in and around these levels. So as you know, we can expect daily price action to consolidate around here. I'm also expecting it because we can see here we've got a large area of weekly support. I'm going to just turn this back to white. Now I mentioned that I was actually even possibly looking at taking a little intraday trade on this on Friday, and I mentioned just at the start that I think that all of these pairs now are coming to the end of this trend, the end of this push. So we may just see an extended last push down, but then I think this is going to be the end of this trend. And we're then going to see a reversal, or we're going to see a retracement at least, and start pushing back up. So now at the moment, we're having that last squeeze at the end of a trend, and just squeezing and milking the last little bit of the short trades here. I think coming down into this region is where we're going to see a reversal on this. So not only do we have this weekly level of area of support, we also know that this level down here, see this level here, this is the second point on the weekly trend line. And we know that this is a weekly support level as well. So even if I took away this box here, we know that this level is going to be quite a strong level of support this weekly. You can see how the market on the daily time frame, how the market rejected this very, very sharply. So coming down anywhere into these levels are going to be very, very important next week. Now, if we zoom in to the daily, we'll zoom into the 4 hour actually. And what we could see here was we were looking at last week, we were looking at our trade from here. It was looking good, had a little push up to the upside at one point. We're about 15 pips in profit, but then it broke down. Now, rather than looking for a new trade, you have to accept, okay, we may be wrong. We may be in this a little bit too early, but with the risk reward and the risk management, we know that, okay, we might have lost a little 1% here, but now just stand aside, be calm, and wait for this to play out, and then we can take it at a better entry. For example, if we were to take a trade from here with 1%, risk 1%, and then we could have a really, really nice risk reward. So losing that 1% is nothing once we get this trade and once we have this big swing trade. So on the 4 hour on Friday, even if I drop down to the 1 hour, I was watching this, and this is just sort of psychology in the market. We know that we've pushed down. We've lost this trade here where we were consolidating and the market pushed down. Now, many people will try and take a new long trade here. And on a Friday, it's the worst thing you can do, because the market is just going to keep pushing and just killing everyone and killing all the retail traders who are trying to recover themselves. As the market pushes down once more, showed a bit of recovery. And here was just another sort of just a minor bullish push, just to try and bring people in to try and take a long trade before it rolled over to the downside once more. So from here, I was looking at possibly taking a bit of a short trade here. We had this nice little move on the Fibonacci, but this was about, you can see at the bottom of the screen, 3 o'clock on a Friday, which isn't a great time to be taking a trade when this is just pushed up and then we've had to push down. So we stayed away from this at the moment, but on this level, we can see that we're sort of got this area to push down, finish off this move, and then from there, we may see a reversal back up to the upside. So we're going to be watching out for price coming down into that sort of region. And then also what we're watching out for on this, as I said, a lot of these US dollar pairs, that big push that we saw on the US dollar, this could be the final push just to finish off this trend. So you can see here, we originally had the Fibonacci from the top, A, B, C retracement, and then we pushed down. We had D extension 1 and D extension 2 that hit. So now we get rid of this, and C becomes a new A, which is here. This becomes the new B, and this is the C retracement. So now we've come down, and you can see we're coming down into this level here. We're coming down towards the first extension. Well, we've actually tapped it. We've hit the first extension on this Fibonacci, A, B, C, and then D, the D extension. But can you see what else lines up absolutely perfectly? You can see here, we'll just go back out to the weekly. You can see here, the weekly support level lines up perfectly with the second extension on the Fibonacci. We'll just move that back, go back to the daily. There is a good possibility that we may just extend this push down a little bit lower before reversing. So now this is the area where we're going to be watching for very, very carefully. Between this first extension on the daily fib and this second extension, price coming into this level, we're at 1.0880 and 1.0940. So it's about 60 pip region. So we're going to be watching this and be looking and watching price action. And I do believe from here is where we're going to have that big long-term swing trade. So once this A, B, C, and D is finished, we've hit the first D extension, we come down to the second. From there, then we may hit this weekly and daily support level, which is very, very strong. You can see the rejection here, and we could have a double bottom on a daily and weekly chart. We could have a fake out on a weekly trend line, and from there we could then see this thing below to the upside. And then this trade is going to be one hell of a trade once it's taken. Obviously, stop loss won't be that big. This is on a weekly chart, but let's just drop down to the daily. For instance, if you're getting around here, you can see the risk reward in this trade is absolutely crazy. Should this one pull off and this plays out as explained. Let me just have a look at the chat. How does that, has everyone followed that okay so far? Someone said, why don't I think that the trend line can be broken and come all the way down? It very well can be, but as I said, this is very, very, very strong. This is a very, very strong weekly trend line. But at that third point, we've got lots of confluences here. We've got the daily push down that we're coming to the end of that daily trend. And regardless, we're on the daily here. You can see that once this pushes down, what does the market have to do, guys? So what does the market have to do? We've got a lower low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, and now we're making a lower low. So what has to happen next? We have to make a lower high, but we'll take the trade and then we'll hold and we'll see how it goes. If we break back above, if we start pushing back up and break back above 1.100, which we haven't really done since we broke it, we push back up to here and then price breaks above 1.100 and that can hold a support, then this is going to be a very, very, very nice trade. We never know 100% what may happen, but we have a good plan now and we can see what may happen. But we know that this has to make a lower high soon. So if this extends the losses down here, then we can expect this to pull back and at least make that lower high. And even that, if we make a new Fibonacci, for instance, if this level did become the new low, so we had A, this was B, and we came back up to C, which you can see lines up roughly with the weekly resistance, that's still going to be a very, very nice trade. So we'll take it as it comes. We don't think too far ahead. We trade what we see and not what we think. Okay, so I'm just having a quick look at some of the chats. So guys, let me think. So that's Euro USD. That's one of my most interesting. Now, US dollar is something that I'm going to be looking at for next week. And what happens in the market, what you need to learn and note this down for the future is, let me just quickly go to the dollar index. So the US dollar index, let me just clear this up a little bit. Well, I'll say I'll clear it up, but let me just go over this a little bit. US dollar index, we saw a big push last week. At the moment, there's people that are in fear. There's people, retail traders, you have to think about how the 95% of people trade. There's people that will be holding long positions here with Euro USD. This push from, see this push up that we had, that brought in so many long traders. And that's why we didn't get involved. I was waiting for a pullback. Obviously, we didn't get the long trade back up, but this brought in so many long traders. Now, this came down. There's people trapped here. There's people trapped. And now they're going to be waiting for market open, hoping that this pushes back up. It's going to keep pushing down and then push down once more. And then when it squeezes everybody out, bang, it will reverse to the upside. So what I'm explaining is when you see big moves like this, often they can be reversed very, very quickly because it brings fear into the market. And that's when you should be getting greedy. When the market's in fear, that's when you want to jump in. So yes, we've had a very, very bullish week, but look at over here how we've had a bullish week. And then look at the next week. So see how we've had a bullish week here, then we've extended the following week, but then bang, we come all the way down. See how that happens? So things like that can, just because we've had a bullish week here, I think we can extend the bullish push on the US dollar. So now let's just quickly analyze the US dollar. This is the dollar index, the DXY. US dollar index measures the US dollar against the top 6 basket of currencies, the top 6 currencies. So here we can see on the weekly chart, very, very bullish, obviously. Broken through here. Drop down to the daily chart, and we can see here that we've got, we broke out of this trend line, the inner trend line. So a very, very strong break on the daily here. Looked like we could possibly push over to the downside, but it continued to bullish push. So what happens when we break out of a trend line, guys? 95% or 90% of the time, if we have a strong break, what we do is we then go searching for the next trend line. So we get rid of this one. And now you can see that we're coming up into this area or out to this outer trend line. Now I've drawn this on for a reason. I'll just move this for a minute, but you can see here we're searching now for the outer trend line. We're pushing. We need to find resistance. This is why we flip back to Euro US dollar. I believe that this can actually still come down and perhaps push out to this support level here first. Now back to the dollar index. Very similar, I think we just saw there. as Euro USD. We can see here, this often can imitate what the Euro US dollar is doing. We've got A, B, C, and now we're hitting that first extension on the daily fib, just like we were hitting the first extension on the daily fib here. However, I think we can extend a little bit further. The momentum is with the bears at the moment on Euro USD. The momentum is with the bulls on US dollar index at the moment. So now that we've broken above 98.50, I do think that we can come up and find this level here. What we may see is, well, we've already actually seen it, is a pullback. We'll clear this off. We might see a pullback to this resistance level, 98.50, but we've actually pulled back to that already. See here, we pulled back to that on Friday. And seeing that is why I was looking at the possible Euro USD short trade, but it wasn't the right time of this day or the session to be taking that trade on a Friday evening. So what we are looking for is this to possibly keep extending this, but we need to be very, very careful this week, because what we've noticed the last few weeks, which is actually fairly new to the market, is the market moving as soon as the market opens. We've seen on a few trades, which I'm going to get to in a minute, like Euro AUD, GBP AUD, literally as soon as the market opens, things start moving and haven't been giving us our entry point, even though we knew where the market was going. So let's get back to the dollar index here. We are coming into that level. If you can see here, this level of resistance, you see resistance here, resistance, resistance. You can see here on a daily chart how a big rejection here, a big rejection and a big rejection. So coming up into this strong area of resistance for the US dollar. Now remember, when we went back to the weekly chart here on Euro USD, we got this strong area of support. So see the similarities between Euro USD and the US dollar that we got there. So looking for this to extend the US dollar to extend the bullishness, and then after that, I'm looking for this to absolutely sort of tank from around these levels and from these resistance and push back down. So that's Euro USD. Euro GBP, this one's a bit messy, as you can see here. I'm not really interested in this one just yet. I do still like this to the upside, along with the pound weakness. But here we just go to the daily chart. There's nothing really in this pair for us at the moment, guys. But I'll just having a look at this anyway. You can see here, long term, we got this trend line, 0.1, 0.2, and we're coming back up towards that again. On the 4 hour, you can see here, we got this 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. So we're having this little nudge up. But we are coming to this 0.8500 resistance level. And it's just been a bit choppy over the past week. And pound pairs, GBP pairs have been a little bit unpredictable. So I would like to see this have another push back down really into these levels here. And I think it will. If we can't break above this level just yet, we may come up and retest this resistance. We've got two areas of confluence for resistance here, which I think should the market find resistance, or maybe possibly a little fake out, then we may be able to look at a trade coming back down into these levels. Now, if we come back into these levels, this will be a beautiful area for that long-term long trade. Let me just clear this off. You can see here, the daily fib, A, B, we've hit B twice, come down into this level, we've hit 1, 2, could possibly keep pushing with this momentum with the pound breaks next week, but we're sitting at resistance, so I'm hoping that early next week we can see this actually just push back to the downside one more time and give us a really nice opportunity to take a long trade. But as I said, not really looking at this one too much at the moment. Euro AUD is an interesting one. This is going to be one of our top pairs this week. So having a quick look at the chat, guys. So yeah, Euro AUD. So you know that I'm looking at Aussie dollar to gain strength next week. Looking for Aussie dollar to buy Aussie dollar pairs. However, not straight away. But with the US dollar pushing that little bit more, could take Aussie dollar US dollar down. Aussie dollar US dollar is sort of the leading pair for Aussie dollar pairs. So if that drops a little bit lower, we could see other Aussie dollar pairs drop a little bit lower as well. So saying that, I'm looking for Aussie dollar strength. but I'm looking at that across all pairs now. So Euro AUD is one of my favorite ones here. So what you can see here quite clearly, a really nice and clean chart here. I'll just get rid of this for the moment. Is daily. First on the daily, if I zoom right out, we've got this area of resistance, which has been a huge area of resistance before. Look at that massive spike on the weekly. Come into this level again. As you can see here, massive spike, massive rejection, huge rejection, and we're starting to reject it once again. So this area is very, very interesting. We can see that price does not like it. So what we've done here, let's clear this up a bit. What we've done here is we've had this nice push up, but we've had this big rejection down. Now after that big rejection, if I drop down to the 4 hour, after that big rejection down, what do we expect to happen? We expect to have a breather. So remember, imagine trades are going on a run. So it's gone on a run, it's left here, it's been on a run for a few days, then it needs to have a little bit of a breather. So this is the breather. So as it's pulling back now, it's having a breather, and we need to see, is this just a breather? Is this going to be the retracement that this needs to catch its breath before then making it going on a run once again? So here, if we just take this from the top to bottom, A, B, C, we can see that we're coming up nicely towards, well, we've actually rejected the 50% quite nicely at the moment. If we just zoom out here, you can see this is where we had the support, resistance, support, we bounce off this as support, and we're now pushing up to this level quite nicely. On the 4 hour chart here, this does look good to see a bit of a shooting star, bearish engulfing candle on the previous candle, but I want a little bit more from this, because this was the end of the day or the end of the week. I want a little bit more from this to show us that the bears can step in here and take control. Now we do have this level here. You can see the 61. This is the perfect level for us to take a trade, because if we can get rejection here, then our stop loss will be above the 78.6 retracement, and then we can ride this all the way down and have a really, really nice trade. So I'm looking for this to perhaps pop up a little bit more. It'd be nice to see this tap the 61.8% retracement, but also if you can see here, if I just add this resistance line on here, you see resistance, support, broke through. We haven't come back and retested as resistance just yet. We come back up here, tap this as resistance, confirm this 61.8% retracement, and then we could be looking at that really nice trade. And we're just coming back up into that area where we know up here is a very, very, very strong resistance area. So we can get Aussie dollar to gain some strength, and from the lows it currently is, then we could see this pushing down. One more thing, just to add confidence onto this as well, is trend lines. We know trend lines are so important. We've got 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Nice shooting star off that. So this does look like a valid trade at the moment. But what we want to do is we want to see how the market opens. And if we can tap this sort of level here, this could be a very, very nice area to look at taking a short trade. But let's see. We have to see how the market opens. There's a lot of variables with the fundamentals at the moment, coronavirus and so on, that could affect the Aussie dollar. So we have to see. This can all change a little bit on market open, but this is a good idea and a possible very, very nice trade. And as I said, we may be having to look at this straight away when the market opens as a possible trade. Euro NZD is kind of similar to Euro AUD. However, we have New Zealand dollar news this week, which I'll go over properly in a second. If I just quickly flick over to the economic calendar, we can see here Wednesday 1 a.m. We got lots of New Zealand dollar news. So we may see not much happening from Euro NZD before that happens, or we may see an early move. So this is what we've got to watch out for. So again, we've got this level, we've got our long-term short trade here. We've had this big bullish push, bullish push from here, but in the grand scheme of things, we've had a 1,000 pip trade from top to bottom here that we took in December, I think it was. So we've taken a 1,000 pip trade here. So that's one hell of a run. That's not even a run. That's what you call a marathon. So we held that trade out. So what happens after a run? You need to have a breather. You need to take a breath and get your breath back, which is what's happening now. And then we could see the bears step in and then take this down once more. This could go even further. So what we're looking at here, here we can see we've got this trend line, 0.1, 0.2. This becomes 0.2 because you can see here on a daily, we've had a big move away from it. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, we've had a big push away. So this becomes a new point. Any 2 points make a trend line, and this is daily. So this is a stronger trend line. So here you can see we're pushing back up towards these regions. We broke out of this inner trend line here, this sort of counter trend line. So what happens when we break out the counter trend lines, guys? We go searching for the next one. So here we could be coming up to these levels. We've got this little bit of space around here where we could just push up here with the New Zealand dollar news, and then have a push to the downside. So two things that we're looking out for here is watching out for a possible double top, but we are still going to monitor on the market open how this price is going to react here. Because if I take this away now that this is broken, you can actually see this 61.8% reacting very, very nicely here. I'll zoom in really, really close here as well. I just see here, see this area of support? So we've got support, broke through, acting as resistance. Doji candle, could see this possibly fall from here. But as I said, we normally would see this close this gap. So we're watching out for this and watching this. So Euro AUD and Euro NZD is something that we're going to be watching as soon as the market opens. We were actually watching out for this last week on Sniper Sundays from here. But then, as I said, the market opened and it didn't give us an opportunity to actually get into this trade. It just pushed down straight away. But Euro AUD, Euro NZD, two good setups there that we're going to be looking out for this week. And we'll just see what the chat is saying. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Okay, let me just move on. Euro JPY, we had a nice trade on this at the start of last week. We saw just I kept this really nice and simple just to recover this week. So we had a really nice, we had a breakout here. See this gap on market open, but we had this consolidating for days along this level. So we came back up, we took that long trade from the bottom and we got out right at the top. We had this nice 38.2% retracement level. I was hoping this could come up higher and we'd get out here, but we could see on lower time frames. Let's go down to the 4 hour. Let me just move that. You can see on the lower time frames here that price started to slow down, and we consolidated here again. Another good example as what I said about the sort of rocket analogy. When something goes up, it doesn't come straight down. When something goes up, it moves sideways and then it comes down. So we took a long trade right on here, came up, and then we got out at the top. But you can see here, then the market just moved sideways, and then it just shows that the steam had sort of run out, the jet fuel had run out, and then it was coming back down. So looking at this now, I do think that Euro JPY can also come down lower. We'll go back to the daily chart. We know that what happens now that we've had a bit of a fake out here, or we put not entirely a fake out because we've actually come back up and retested the back of this broken trend line. But what happens now? What do we do next when this happens? We can adjust this trend line as per the trend line strategy, and you can see we're coming down to it again. However, longer term, I do think that we're going to come down and fulfill this fib. I think the Euro JPY can come down a little bit lower. We've got this area down here, a support region. We'll just put that across. You can see resistance, support, and it looks like we're going to come down into this region and tap and come down to these levels. So we'll be watching out for this for a possible trade, but we aren't looking for it just yet. And why do you think that is? We're not looking for a short trade just yet because we're coming into a strong area of support just now. So we don't want to sell at support, obviously. So we're coming into a strong area here. We've also got this area here that we bought from before. So we may see a little bounce from these levels. So we might find a little bit of support at these levels here, which would be nice. And what we could be looking out for here is a trend line across the top here. We could be looking at 0.1, 0.2, and then if we have the right price action and everything shows up nicely, we could be having 0.3 for a lovely little trade. The momentum behind us, sort of like the wind in our sails, with the momentum behind us, we could have a possible nice trade to come down into these levels. So be watching out for that and keeping an eye on Euro JPY. GBP USD, these pairs are very, very choppy. There's not really much to say on these at the moment. Daily, again, just to reiterate what I've been saying about the US dollar, if I just show you here on the daily, let's get rid of this for a minute. And let me just show you on the 4 hour. I think it's a little bit clearer. It's not very clear at all. But let's just go here. Well, how is the fib from the top? This is long term. We were always expecting this to come down to around 1.2750. Remember my Sniper Sundays from about 3-4 weeks ago. However, I was looking for this to get that short trade to come down here. I was looking at this pair coming up a little bit higher. And last week, we didn't actually manage to come up a little bit higher. We came down into this important level of support once again. So we can see here, we've just been sort of bouncing off these levels. And we haven't really had any real sort of news to get us to break even lower. So you can see here, we broke through the support, the trend line here, came down, found support. So we adjusted that trend line once again, and then we broke through on Thursday, and then we continued down on Friday. So we're pushing down now. This is an important level that we've broken below. It sort of looks like it's in free fall at the moment. I do think that there's a bit more downside on the pound here. Currently, what we can be looking out for on the 4 hour is around these levels here. We can watch how the market opens. We see we've had a nice little retest here. We want to see how bearish this is. We just look here on the trend line. We just pull this down. We can see we've got another 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Now again, this is something I was looking at on Friday for an intraday trade. However, the timing of this just wasn't right. Here, we just have a look at this. We can see let me go to the 1 hour chart. It was more at 3-4 o'clock in the day. But for the future, we can see here how on the trend line strategy, how I've explained before, how 0.1, 0.2, and you see nice price action here, 0.3, and then pushing down. So again, like other pairs, other US dollar pairs, I believe that we're going to see this continue down lower. I think we're going to see this extend some lows and come down lower before seeing any sort of sign of reversal. But at the moment, this is very, very hard to read. So I'm not going to really pay too much attention to GBP USD just yet. We are very, very bearish, as we can see from this inner trend line, pushing us straight down. We will watch how this reacts on market open. What we may see on early next week is a possible intraday trade. We might see this pull back up here, as we see the US dollar. If I drop down to the 1 hour chart, as we may see on the US dollar may come back to retest these sort of levels. Pound may gain a little bit of strength. But if we come back to these levels, we could easily see another sell-off one more time, maybe even back up to this trend line. So apart from that, not really looking at too much on the pound pairs. GBP JPY as well. Daily chart here, this just shows how choppy this has been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days this has been within this daily range. It's a hard one to call at the moment. So if it's hard to call, don't try and call it. Let's just leave that for the moment. Let this sort of develop, show us a little bit more. And once it does, then we can possibly looking at taking a trade. But right now, there's nothing really for us just yet. GBP AUD is one that's very interesting. As you know, this is something that I was looking at for since last week. So sort of similar situation to Euro AUD. GBP AUD here, what we can see is we've had a push up into this region. I'm going to just clear this up a little bit more and start again. So big area of resistance here we can see on the daily chart. Just go to the weekly quickly. Big area of resistance. Big area of resistance here on the weekly. Pushed up, big squeeze. So this is similar to what I was explaining about the US dollar, guys. See that big squeeze on the daily or the weekly? And what can easily happen straight after. So see this big weekly candle, here, GBP AUD, see that big weekly candle, then straight away, as soon as market opened, bang. Price action is very, very choppy these days. So we've had a big push down here. Now, if we're going to continue this push down, if this bearish push is going to happen, we can see here we've had quite a strong rejection. So again, we've had a little bit of a run. Now what we're going to do, we've retraced back up, sort of having a breather before we roll over to the downside. Now, obviously, the best entry here, or the best possible outcome for this, is for this to push up here, tap this level, and then look at taking a short trade down. At the moment, though, we are finding some resistance here, but I do think that we can expect some more weakness on Aussie dollar first. So I am expecting perhaps to push up a little bit higher, come up into sort of that region, and then look at taking a short trade. Here, we can see we've rejected to the 38.2%. We've got the 50 just above and the 61.8% that lines up perfectly with this trade, with this form of resistance over here. So this is another setup that I'm looking out for. Patiently waiting for this one. We saw this nice push down. I said that happened on market open, so there wasn't really much we could do. So the market pushed down as soon as the market opened and didn't give us here. Taking a short trade here when the market opened was a gamble. So there was no trade there, and it kept pushing. You don't jump on a moving train. And now here we found support. Now we're having that push back up. What we want to do is see the price push back up into sort of these regions here, and anywhere up around here is going to be really, really nice risk reward for looking at a short trade and then looking at this coming down. Again, big trades, big swing trades. These are just rough risk reward, but yeah, there's a nice sort of signs of this pushing down and coming down to anywhere down to around these regions. US dollar, Japanese yen, not really much to say about this one, guys. This has been choppy as hell. Similar to GBP JPY, but here on USD JPY, this has just been moving sideways. It's been within this 200 pip region since back in October 2019, and it's not giving us any signs. At the moment, we are making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. So really, I'd only be looking at taking a trade on here if we can extend up and make a higher high up around these regions, or come up and test this double top, maybe test this outer trend line, 0.1, 0.2, test this for a third time. Could be a nice confluences for a short trade down, and then we'd be looking at taking some profit around these levels. And then if we did take the trade, to take some profit, because this could hold a support again, but then could possibly break down. USD CAD, so this is an interesting one. I know a lot of people are looking at USD CAD. USD CAD, I've had to go out to the weekly chart here to look at and keep it really nice and clean. We'll go to the weekly chart to show you what's happening here. So a lot of people are looking at taking a short trade here, and when you can sort of feel that many people are looking for a trade, it would normally do the opposite. And we know that the Aussie dollar has some more space to move to the downside. Aussie dollar having an inverse correlation with USD CAD. What we can see here, there's a lot of people that are probably only looking at this area. If I drop down to the daily chart, a lot of people are probably only looking at this area here. This trend line, 0.2 and 0.3, and not really paying attention to the bigger picture out here. So here you can see the outer trend line, and you can see here on a daily chart, we've broken the inner trend line. So we've broken this 0.1, 0.2, and we broke big, strong breakout on 0.3. Bit of consolidation now, but you can see that price is now trying to actually push up even higher. So we take away this trend line, or I'll pull it back for a minute. What did I say at the start? What happens when we break a trend line? If we have a strong break like this, we try and reach the next trend line, the outer trend line. If it's the inner, it'll look for the outer. If we break the outer, it'll look for the long term. So here, it looks like we're going to try and push out and tap this level here. You can see here we do have this consolidation zone. It's accumulating here, guys. It's trying to get sellers to come into the market. It's trying to get buyers to come into the market, and it's pulling people in both ways. Market's indecisive where it wants to go. You can see a push up here, probably bringing in some short sellers now, or taking out some stop losses. Looks like it might push down, but this is going to come out and come up into this resistance area. You can see this resistance area here, which lines up with around 1.3350, to possibly even up to 1.3400. Now that we've broken this level, I do see this continuing this push up into this region and a strong area of daily resistance. 1, 2, 3. Go to the weekly. You can see again that strong area of resistance that we're coming into along here. So expecting this to come up into this region, tap this weekly trend line, and remember, trend lines on the weekly chart are very, very strong. So we could see a really nice, really nice rejection here, and we could see a strong rejection, which plays out perfectly with our Aussie dollar analysis. We see a big, strong rejection on the weekly trend line here and push down. Then we can also see Aussie dollar push to the upside. Aussie dollar, get into that next. So similar situation. It's a US dollar pair. I think we're going to see a little bit of an extension on the US dollar push. Just flick back to the US dollar index. Again, expecting the US dollar to continue that push up a little bit at the start of next week before dropping to the downside. So that means that we can expect Aussie dollar to push to the downside a little bit more before we see a reversal. So where can we see this now? We can see we got this Fibonacci, A, B, C. I think we're going to come down, finish off this move, come down into sort of these regions here, and then from there we can see this pair turn around to the upside. Now here we can just see on a daily, very, very strong level of support, dipped just below the monthly support level of 0.6700. Now guys, remember what I said about fear in the market, and the market sort of puts fear into people, and then that's when you see the big move. Often it's when you think things can't go any are just going to keep dropping and keep dropping. For instance, when this support breaks and this breaks down to sort of these regions, it's going to look like this can just keep going. But then all of a sudden you'll see a turnaround. It's pushing the fear in the market. Anyone that's long from here, anyone that's long from these regions, it's going to keep pushing. And then once it gets down to these levels, you're going to see a reversal. Here you can see a really, really strong daily level of daily support and weekly. We'll go to the weekly chart, sort of creating a double bottom here at the moment. So now you could easily see a weekly candle, a bullish candle coming tomorrow, next week. We can see initially to extend a little bit lower, tap into these regions, finish off this daily move, finish off this weekly move. And once we finish off this level, then we can see a nice move up to the upside. Also, when I say about fear in the market, is when this drops down into these regions, you're probably going to see on Forex Factory or FX Street or whatever the sort of things that you watch, it will say Aussie dollar, US dollar, lowest level since, and then let's have a look, since 2009. And I guarantee we're going to see those, or even since the 2019. But down here, we're going to reach levels next week that we haven't seen since 2009. That's going to spark fear into the market, anyone holding long trades, and then it's probably not 100%, you know, you can never be 100%, but from here is where we're going to see the new wave up. We're going to come down, make a new lower low now. I think we're going to come down and just extend slightly low down here, come down into these levels, lower low, lower high, lower low, and then this is on the weekly chart, guys. So if this pushes down into these levels here, extends that low with the US dollar, and then we take that buy and make a lower high, or possibly even reversal, this trade is going to be crazy as well. As I said, a little loss of 1% at the moment is nothing, because the trades that are coming are going to be crazy. Aussie dollar CAD, similar situation here. We're at a very, very, very strong level of support on the weekly chart here. You can see this level of support, big rejection. Just watching this one carefully. Choppy price action is a bit hard to read, but I'm going to be watching this next week. We've got this level of support. I'm watching price coming down into this region, and let me just get rid of this at the moment. This is just keeping a close eye on the all Aussie dollar pairs. So we've got 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Looks like we could have a push down. However, what I will be monitoring early this next week is what we were looking at last week. We had a, what were we, 20 pips in profit last week, is this big push down here. So we've had this nice initial push and rejection from the strong daily support level. Let's go back to the weekly chart. So we can see here, this whole area is a strong weekly level, weekly support. So we've seen a nice rejection from this level once again. Let me just clear this up again, guys, just to make this a bit clearer for you. So you can see here, we've dipped into this strong weekly, daily level of support. Support. Dip down a little bit lower, support. And now we've seen this bullish push and a bullish run to the upside. So you see this nice bullish push. However, we failed as we come to trendline resistance. As I've always explained, we have to expect to see some resistance at these trend lines. Whether we're going to break them or not, we always expect to see some resistance. So now what's going to be very, very interesting is now that we know this, and we know this is a strong area of support, we've got a good chance of rebounding from this level once again. And we're going to be watching out to see how the market reacts to this pullback, to this retracement. We've got A, B, and C here. This is a telltale sign of things that we want to see. So on Friday, we're looking at this, pinged off the 78.6% retracement once, pinged off it twice, doji candle on a 4-hour, shows that price is unable to break below this level. You can see here, we've got this strong area of resistance. We've got some resistance, 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 resistance. Price has come down into this level, isn't able to break it. And then if we drop down to the 1 hour, we also saw really nice signs. We had this really big spike here, 1 hour pin bar, 1 hour. Then we had this 1 hour morning star formation. 1, 2, 3. Looked like this really looked like it was gonna take off on Friday, but then we didn't have enough in it, and it pushed back down, and we came out of break even. But this is one I'm still watching very, very closely. This could also be one that we need to watch as soon as market opens. Let's see how the Aussie dollar reacts to the news over the weekend, any more on the coronavirus and so on, and we'll see how it fares out over the weekend. But Aussie dollar pairs, I said, are on my watch list very, very closely. So this is one also, see, as we took that trade on Friday, is also going to be at the top of our watch list on market open. NZD USD, this one dropping off. We know that we got New Zealand dollar news coming next week. So let's just have a look at this. New Zealand dollar, we know we got news coming next week. We have to zoom right out here on the weekly time frame as well on this one. Having a good old look at these pairs over the weekend. You can see here 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. That's where we had that huge rejection back here in 2019, October 2019. Had a big push back, push all the way up. Now we've seen a bit of a sell-off over the last couple of weeks, as you can see. At the moment, if we just take a Fibonacci from top to bottom, you can see we're coming down. We're now at this sort of area of 61 and the 78% retracement level. So this is interesting to see how this is going to react this week. We've seen a big sell-off. We've broken through this weekly daily trend line. So now what are we going to do? More than likely see a push and come down out to the next trend line. So that's one of the reasons why I went back out to the weekly chart to look for this, because we can see here that we've broken this trend line, 0.1, 0.2. So once that trend line is broken, we want to see where the next trend line is. And in order to get that, we had to go out to the weekly chart to see that this is where the next trend line is, the long term. Now you can see how long term that this trend line is. So this is very strong. This is a very strong trend line. This is the last trend line there is on the uptrend. Should this break, then there's huge downside momentum. But the market, I don't think, is ready for that just yet. And even if we do have a push down, I believe there'll be twists and turns first. So there is a possibility of this pushing down from where it is now. It's at around 0.6400. Could come down back down to around the 0.6300 area, where we'll be watching this. Could be intraday trades first on the way down, but we have to be careful because we do know that it is New Zealand dollar news coming out this week. So at the moment, I do expect some more downside. We may look for some trades, but if we just go back to Euro NZD, this is one of the reasons why I think that this can still push out to this level first. I think there's more downside on NZD on the New Zealand dollar first, and I'm going to be watching the New Zealand dollar coming down and possibly push down a little bit lower. We see here we did have A, B, C retracement, and we completed D1, D2. So we could be looking at this here. This is the new A, that's the B, and now we can see we're coming down to the 78% retracement level, which is a strong area of resistance as well. So this is one that we need to be watching out for as well. This is a possible Fibonacci level, but we could be just retracing a little bit deeper, given that the US dollar is strong at the moment as well. We could be looking at a slightly deeper retracement to come into this 78% retracement level, down into this region before a possible push back up to the upside. So we're watching that one carefully. NZD CAD is another interesting one. We've been watching this for quite some time. We saw this big bullish push up here. Sorry guys. So this big bullish push up here. Again, market's having a breather as it pulls back here. This is on a daily chart. We were in this consolidation zone. Remember about 3 weeks ago, we were looking at a long trade, just to push back up into these regions before looking at taking a short trade. We're just looking at a trade to push back up here before this retraced even bigger. Now, however, now that we've seen this push down, I think that this, along with other New Zealand dollar pairs and Aussie dollar pairs, are coming to the end of this push. And here we can see we broke this support. I'll just get rid of this. We see New Zealand CAD. We had this support level. We broke through the support, came back, resistance, and now we're pushing down. We've got this Fibonacci on the daily chart, A, B, C retracement coming down to D. D lines up perfectly with 0.8500, that round significant level. And from there, could dip a little bit lower. The last little squeeze into this region. If I just highlight this region and get rid of this fib. Just like NZD USD, I think we could see a little push back down. Remember, the overall move is bullish on the weekly chart. As you can see here, this big bullish on a weekly chart, big bullish move. And we could just come down and see that level that I highlighted, how it comes down to this sort of 61.8%. So we could just come down, dip into that level, and here could be that next really nice swing trade as well. Big swing trades we're looking at. Oil is another one, tricky one at the moment. Oil. Let's look at the commodities now. Oil on a weekly chart. Again, had to go out to the weekly chart to see where price could be going. We know that oil broke this trend line, so we need to find out where the next trend line is. In order to do that, because this is broken this sort of weekly or daily trend line here, this inner trend line, we had to look at where the outer trend line is. At the moment, we are not far away from the outer trend line, but as I've explained many times, what do we expect when we're this close to a trend line? 95% of the time, we will come out and actually tap it. So currently, we are hitting this $50 level, and I do think that we will actually see another push down to fulfill this level on the trend line. At the moment, we're sort of playing around with the $50 region. So let me just adjust this. So we're playing around with the $50 region. We're playing around with the $50 region here. And what we can see is, I think we're just trying to bring in some buyers, before we have the next rollover to the downside and actually tap this outer trend line. You can see here on the weekly, bearish, very bearish at the moment. Daily, we're seeing a nice little sign to the upside, but it's still too bearish at the moment. We might see little flashes of bullish moves to the upside, but I think until we get out to the outer trend line and tap that level, I don't think that we're going to be seeing too much upside on oil. Yes, we are seeing a little bit of nice inverse head and shoulders, but it's very choppy. This could just be considered as a bit of consolidation. So we could just see a little pop up here on oil still, but I think that we're going to see another push to the downside and come out and tap that outer trend line on oil. And then from there, we could be seeing that big retracement. Well, not a massive retracement like that, but remember, everything needs to retrace, guys. And then from the top here, and this does become the bottom down here, then we need to retrace to the 38% at least. That's $55, which is 500 pips from around these levels, or 600 pips from around these levels, if we can get down to these levels. So I'm looking for some more oil weakness, and that will also play well with USD CAD pushing up higher. US oil being weaker, we'll see USD CAD push up higher, and that will also help with NZD CAD pushing up higher as well. If we see New Zealand dollar strength, and we see if we see oil gain strength once it drops that little bit lower, so we may see New Zealand dollar CAD drop that little bit lower first. We may see oil drop that little bit lower first into these regions to tap that outer trend line. And then if we did see some nice oil strength, then that means that the Canadian dollar is going to gain strength. So USD CAD, we would actually see a push down on this one. But actually on NZD CAD, sorry, that would also see Canadian dollar push down on this one. So we need to watch out for that one, and just monitor how this one's actually going to play out. We're expecting New Zealand dollar strength. We've got a nice setup there. Oil obviously affects the Canadian dollar, but doesn't always mean that you need to completely, if the US oil is getting stronger, doesn't mean that you have to completely forget about a Canadian dollar trade, and not trade for the Canadian dollar to get weaker, because obviously it has an effect on it, but it hasn't got 100% control on it. So that's what I'm looking at oil. I think oil can come down a little bit lower and at least come out to tap the outer trend line here. And then gold, very, very interesting one, gold. We've been looking for a long-term short on this for quite some time. And what we had here, it's getting a bit messy, which I thought it would before, obviously, we have a big trade. So as explained, I think last week, what happens with triangles, guys? We nearly always see a fake out 1 or 2 times before the actual move. So you can see here we had 0.1, 0.2, came out, fake out to the upside. Look at this big bullish candle, and then we just flip to the downside. Fake out number 1. Then big push down to the downside, big bearish candle, bringing in a lot of short sellers to push to take this down. But then what happens? Morning star formation, 1, 2, 3, push back up to the upside. Another fake out number 2. Now we adjust these trend lines. You can just see things are getting a little bit wider. We had this area of support through here around 1550, that round significant level, 1550. And at the moment, I'm watching this one quite carefully. I do think that gold is I still like the longer term push to the downside to actually break through this triangle formation longer term and come down and create new lows below here. But at the moment, we're seeing another little push up. But I think that we're going to see gold push up back up to these regions here. And from here then, we've got this Fibonacci where we've retraced here. We've had resistance 1, resistance 2 off the 61.8% retracement. And here we could have resistance 3. That would also hit a really nice sort of left shoulder, head, and a right shoulder. Also, third touch of this trend line. These would all add up to a magnificent short trade all the way down, possibly come all the way down. I think I said this at the beginning of January, coming down to below 1500. We're talking 1,000 pips there. So we can see why I'm being patient and watching this one carefully. However, on the lower time frames, just get rid of these. We are seeing a nice little sort of rejection here. So we have to be careful and watch out and just see how price is going to continue around at these levels. At the moment, if I just get rid of this, we can see on this push down, we're having a bit of a retracement here. Currently, we're hitting the 50%, could come up to the 61. Gold loves the 78.6% retracement. We see it a lot on gold. So we could hit this level, which then even with this Fibonacci lines up with the bigger Fibonacci. So this can happen sometimes, guys. We can get a lower time frame Fibonacci that also lines up with a higher time frame Fibonacci, and then the two together can cause magic. You can see here, see the 61.8% retracement. See how it lines up with the this Fibonacci retracement here. It lines up with the 78.6% retracement. So that level is a huge level of resistance. So price can come up there, then we'll be looking at a big short trade down. Probably have a fake out to the upside first, try and induce some more long traders, and then boom, that's where we're going to be looking at coming down. That's about it, guys. You can see here that sort of triangle pattern creating there on gold. We spoke about the US dollar index. So that's sort of the main things that we're looking out for the week. Let me have a look at the chat and see what the chat's saying. Someone said, have a look at the lower time frames on gold. So just as explained, yeah, we could see, I still think that we're going to see a push up. You can see here, just use this as a trend line. We've got 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. I don't think it's time for shorting just yet, guys. We're going to come up into that level where we want it to come up to this level, come up to this region. And then if everything plays out, remember, we have to see how price acts once it gets there. But that could be the area where it's the big short. Yes, I think we're going to have a new Aussie dollar CAD trade. Watching this one, this could be, we need to watch the coronavirus situation. There's some news coming out from Australian dollar. We need to watch out how that's going to behave. But yeah, Aussie dollar CAD, this could be a really nice trade as well. So I'm going to be watching out for that, and watching out for this to come back up and test that outer trend line. Could have a really nice trade here, guys. Let's go to the 4 hour and see where that Fibonacci lines up nicely. Come back up to sort of these regions. Yeah, so we could have a nice trade. I'm watching the market very, very carefully on market open, especially Aussie dollar pairs, Aussie dollar USD. Like I'd expecting Aussie dollar to push down a little bit lower, but we have to see how the market opens. This is a strong daily level of support. So we could find support here and then flip up. We might move fast. It's been moving fast straight off market open the last couple of weeks. So we have to be careful and watch out for that. Have I watched the HBO series Billions? No. No, I haven't. So they're the top trades, guys. I'll be covering more, obviously, on a day-to-day basis. For Sniper Sundays, that's all the ones. That's all the ones that are sort of at the forefront of our mind, at the ones that are on the top of our watch list. So I don't want to go over too many charts because there's not too many at the moment. Aussie dollar pairs. Someone mentioned Aussie dollar Japanese yen. Aussie dollar pairs. We're going to be watching very, very closely. So as more happens on Aussie dollar pairs, we'll watch. Let's just have a look here. Aussie dollar Japanese yen. Let's just have a quick look over this one. Aussie dollar Japanese yen. We shorted from up here for 300 pips, moved all the way down. Came down to this level, bounced a little bit earlier than I expected. But see, now that it has bounced, see how I've used this trend line, 0.1, 0.2. So that now makes a trend line. But we zoom in here. Really nice and clean here, guys. We can see we had this level of resistance. So we had support, broke through, had this gap here, broke down. We've now come back up and retested that as resistance. We're pushing down now one more time, but I am also watching here on this pair. This is a bit tricky because on the 4 hour, obviously we've had this big push down, we've had a retracement, it could push lower. But if we look here on the 4 hour, and as I said, Aussie dollar is at very, very critical areas. See this level of support. So this could be a left shoulder, a head, possible right shoulder, doji candle there as well. We just put on this Fibonacci, 61.8%. So there's a possible that we may find some support here. But what you want to do here, guys, is with this big bearish candle on a daily, we want to watch out and just let this one sort of consolidate and let it just develop around here before we look at taking a trade. Okay, guys, I'll answer a few questions. If you've got a few questions. What time does the forex market open UK time? 10 p.m. So an hour, just under an hour and a half. Where do I get my bias from? Like I just showed you guys, my bias is from just looking at the charts. Like you can see here, like for example, Euro USD, we can see here confluences on top of confluences. So just looking at the charts and reading the charts, guys, and understanding. Also, you just, after a while, you see how the market moves. And you can see how when you keep trading with me and you're taking these trades day in, day out, you can see how things like this, where the market thinks that the Euro USD is going to keep going lower, that's when it reverses. Like all these things I'm teaching you and saying on a daily basis, that's where you get the bias from. Trend reversals. What are the initial indicators of a big reversal? There's never always an indication of a massive reversal. You always got to sort of have, like here on Euro USD, you have to have an idea that things can reverse. Here on the weekly and daily, this is a good sign that we could see a reversal. and a big reversal because it's on the daily or weekly chart. So we see a double bottom here. We know that on the 1 hour time frame, 15-minute, 30-minute, if we see a double bottom on a 30-minute time frame and a shooting star, we look at taking a short trade, for instance. So that shows that there's a reversal or a short-term retracement in or change in trend. Now imagine that now on the daily or weekly chart. If you're going to see a double bottom on a weekly or daily chart like this, then it gives you a good indication that should this hold a support, then this has got a big, this has got a big chance of reversal. If this is going to hold once again and form a double bottom, then we can expect a lot of upside. Can I explain taking into account the spread when setting stop loss? Okay, guys, so about the spread when setting stop loss. Now, I've explained this before, let's go over it again. If you can imagine that this, for instance, we've taken a trade and this was your stop loss. So imagine that this level here, 1.0880 is your stop loss. And this is where you're long from, and this is your stop loss. Now, what you have to remember, guys, is that this level here, there's a difference between the buy and sell. When you buy, and when you buy, let's go. The buy price could be 1.0880, and the sell price could be, let's have a look here, 1.0878. So there's a difference, there's a spread there. There's a difference of 2 pips, between the sell and the buy. 1.0878 and 1.0880. There's a 2 pip difference. So what you have to do is when you're placing your stop loss, you need to allow for that 2 pip difference in the spread. So you need to allow the 2 pips or maybe even an extra pip, so that when the price is moving, if it comes down and the sell price hits this, your buy price the sell price may hit 1.0880, but the buy price might not, but you'll get stopped out by your broker. So you want to allow, if I put a stop loss at 1.0880, your stop loss wants to be around 1.0876 or 77 or 78, whatever the spread is when you took that trade. Guys, also I'm going to answer a few more questions, but you've seen that we've got a new system for the webinar. So what I'm also going to be doing is do more frequent webinars. So we've got a specific topic that we'll talk about next week. So we'll have another educational webinar next week using the same system. This one was sort of, someone mentioned to me, what was I going to say about Sniper Sundays? I was going to do something extra. This is the doing something extra. We've done Sniper Sundays live, answering your questions, and then what I'm going to be doing is doing some more webinars next week, and then we're going to be doing it quite frequently as well. Also, I'm going to be doing something else, which I'm going to come to over the next couple of weeks regarding going live and stuff. But yeah, so next week we're going to have an educational webinar, and then we're going to keep them quite regularly after that. This new system platform that we're using is nice and clean and easy to use, and I can see that you guys are liking it in the chat box. Guys, what I'll do is there's a lot of questions here. I don't want to take too long on this because it's a Sniper Sundays and it needs to be uploaded. I'm going to look at some of your questions and then go over that in the next webinar. And then we'll go over that in the next webinar, and I'll answer those questions. I'll note these down and look into these. There's so many questions coming in, guys. They're flying in at the moment. Do you use market structure on lower time frames and take trades as long as it's in the same trend as in the bigger time frames? Do you use market structure? Yes. I'm not really sure. Do you use? Yes, obviously, if you're looking at the lower time frames and it's in line with the overall trend, then for instance here, we could see on Friday that Euro USD was pushing down quite hard. So we could see that there was an entry to maybe say take a short trade here, and the overall trend is down, then yes, that's nice. There's no problem with doing it. Would you ever start a trading floor with community members that prove themselves? 100%, guys. That is obviously a natural thing in the future. I've spoken about this at my event. A lot of people, I'll just talk about this and then I'll finish up, guys. So I talk about 1% rule so much, and a lot of people can't get it into their heads to only risk 1%, because I understand you might be trading a small account, but what people don't realize is they over leverage on a small account and they'll lose their money. Rather than doing the 1% risk and trading a small account, but trading continuously and making a continuous amount of money. If you can do that, and like I said at my event, if you can trade 1% per trade, and you can make, like what we've done in January, you can make 10%, and you can come to me in 6 months' time or a year's time and say, I've traded 1% on every single trade, and I made 5-10% continuously, January, February, March, April, May, or for 6 months. You walk into any investor and say, this is how I trade, stick to the rules, low risk, every month finish between 5-10 or more percent, any investor will snap your hand off. So that's what you want to be doing, and your long-term goal, if you haven't got the money to trade on a larger scale, which is the situation for many. But yes, if people can prove to me in 6 months' time that, right, I've been following your trades, I've taken my own trades, using the 1% rule, and record all your trades, there's places here, there's seats to be filled, and funding to be had for anyone that can prove themselves as a trader. Why not? So that's about it, guys. I'm going to finish up here, guys. Hope you enjoyed Sniper Sundays. Give me some feedback on Discord. Give me some feedback on Instagram and so on. Hope that you all enjoyed it. Thank you, guys. I'm glad that you like it. A few people mentioning it. Yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. Tag me in it and so on if you've been recording this. Hope that you've enjoyed it. As I said, I'm going to be doing these a lot more often, guys, now. So let's see how the market opens. We've got an hour to the market opens. So let's kill this week. Let's be patient. Let's wait for these big trades. And once we get these trades, we're going to hold them for a long time. So let's be patient and let's take these trades. Speak to you soon, guys. Have a great evening, and I'll speak to you on market open.